So before we take you live to the joint statements by President Trump and Turkish President Erdogan, let's get some insight on what the leaders will talk about and how it will play out on the world stage. We're joined by Bloomberg's chief Washington correspondent Kevin Cirilli, who's at the White House, and Edward Djerejian. He is former U.S. ambassador to Syria and to Israel. He's currently the director of public policy at Rice University Baker Institute, and he joins us from Houston, Texas. Ambassador Djerejian, let me just begin with you and ask you, what might be the Turkish president's message today, whether it be to the Turkish people or to those that are watching Turkey closely?
Well, I think the fundamental message that President Erdogan would like to convey is that the U.S. Turkish relationship, which is a critical relationship, is being maintained and fostered. Turkey, as you know, is a major NATO ally. It has the second largest military component in NATO after the United States. It is geopolitically in such a central place between Europe and the Middle East. And this relationship is a key relationship, and it's in the interest of any leader of Turkey to maintain that relationship with the United States. So in a broad geopolitical context, this is a very important meeting for both sides because the U.S. has interest, Turkey has interest. The more specific issues that Erdogan and Trump will be addressing, of course, is Syria. And there are some conflicting objectives in Syria, which we can go into more detail if you wish, that need to be resolved. The issue of Fethullah Gulen, the Turkish leader who's in exile in the United States, who lives in the United States. Yes. And then also, I think what will be very important is the Turkish-Russian-Iranian relationship that has been growing. So there's a lot on the agenda.
We're going to speak about the agenda in just a moment, but Kevin Cirilli, Bloomberg's chief Washington correspondent, let me come to you. We just heard the U.S. president say that it's going to be a long and hard discussion with Turkey's president. He was speaking to reporters at the White House and also said it was a great honor to host Turkey. It's, again, though, coming at a very strange time, right on the heels of this report that the president divulged highly classified information to Russia.
Yes. Oh, the drama continuing to engulf 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue today. Earlier, of course, I spoke with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who argued that he hopes that there would be, quote unquote, a little less drama coming from the White House, end quote. But I can tell you that the senior aides to Republican members that I'm speaking with on Capitol Hill are growing increasingly frustrated about the fallout and the handling of not just the firing of now former FBI Director James Comey, not just, of course, the Washington Post report, which the White House is refuting, but still raises questions about just how this administration is handling classified information, particularly because this perfect storm of political controversy now puts at risk President Trump's ability to accomplish items on his legislative to-do list, such as health care reform, such as tax reform. And I put this question about specifically several issues that are dividing Republicans on a policy front, including something controversial like the border adjustment tax, to the Senate Majority Leader. Take a listen to what Senator McConnell had to say.
It probably wouldn't pass the Senate, but the way we're trying to go forward is the Secretary of the Treasury, the Speaker, and myself are trying to reach an agreement on a proposal that we can all agree to start with. And of course, it will start in the House. We haven't reached that agreement yet, but we will at some point.
So there you have it, with the controversial issue of the border adjustment tax probably not going to be included in the Senate's, at least the Senate's proposal of tax reform. But again, there you have it. Senator McConnell working with top officials in the administration to craft policy. It's hard to do that when so much of the narrative, so much of the story coming out of the White House is defending itself in its relationship with Russia. All right.
Ambassador Djerejian and director of the Rice Institute, the Baker Institute at Rice University, I'd like to come back to you now and ask you, what will be, the outcome of today's meeting? Will it just be a friendly sort of get-together so that at least the two leaders can suss each other out, or will there be anything actually accomplished by today's meeting between Erdogan and President Trump?
Well, it may be very difficult for both leaders to resolve the specific issues that are really issues that are dividing the two countries. One, the issue of the Kurds in Syria and Erdogan's very, very active operations against the PKK and the YPJ that he has branded as terrorist organizations. Actually, the PKK is branded as a terrorist organization by the United States also.
Exactly.
But the United States is supporting the YPJ, which is somehow affiliated with the PKK, but is really the most effective military fighting force within the Syrian defense forces, the groups that the United States and others are supporting in Syria. They are the ones who have been the most effective militarily in the field, and especially at this critical moment when all forces are aimed at Raqqa, the so-called capital of ISIS.
And so I suppose the question then is, will the U.S. president in any way be able to convince the Turkish president to change tactics, change strategy, maybe, ignore some of what, the Kurds are doing, given that he obviously doesn't support what the Kurds are doing in his own country?
I think a possible compromise on this can be that the United States puts its position forward that, look, we're doing this tactically because this is the most effective way to get rid of ISIS in Raqqa, but it's a tactical move. But in no way does the United States support the PKK or Kurdish aspirations for independence and autonomy, either in Syria and certainly not in Turkey.
What's the scope?
I think diplomatically there is a way of coming to some compromise on this, but it's going to take artful diplomacy and quite frankly,
some Ambassador Djerejian, we are going now to the President of the United States.
It is a great pleasure to welcome President Erdogan for his first visit to the White House in years. The American and Turkish peoples have been friends and allies for many, many decades. Turkey was a pillar in the Cold War against communism. It was a bastion against Soviet expansion, and Turkish courage in war is legendary. That is so true. Turkish soldiers fought bravely alongside of American soldiers in the Korean War, and we haven't forgotten what they did. In some ways, when we looked at their great bravery in the fight of Korea and in Korea, it was just something that our soldiers and our great generals still remember. Supreme Commander General Douglas MacArthur singled out and praised the exemplary valor of the Turkish soldier, said some of the great soldiers of the world. Today we face a new enemy in the fight against terrorism, and again we seek to face this threat together. The Turkish people have faced horrible terrorist attacks in recent years and even recently. We offer our compassion to the victims, and we offer our support to the Turkish nation. We support Turkey in the first fight against terror and terror groups like ISIS and the PKK, and ensure they have no safe quarter, the terror groups. We also appreciate Turkey's leadership in seeking an end to the horrific killing in Syria. The Syrian civil war shocks the conscience of the whole world, and all you have to do is look on the front page of the papers today and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. We also support any effort that can be used to reduce the violence in Syria and create the conditions for a peaceful resolution. President Erdogan and I are also discussing the need to reinvigorate our trade and commercial ties. These are areas where we can build a relationship that will benefit both of our countries. Military equipment was ordered by Turkey and the president, and we've made sure that it gets there quickly. I look forward to working together with President Erdogan on achieving peace and security in the Middle East, on confronting the shared threats, and on working toward a future of dignity and safety for all of our people. Mr. President, thank you for visiting our country and joining us today at the White House. It is a great honor to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Sayın Başkan, değerli dostum, değerli basın mensupları, sizleri en kalbi duygularımla, saygıyla selamlıyorum.
Mr. President, my dear friend, distinguished members of the press, at the outset I'd like to wholeheartedly salute you all.
Öncelikle Amerika Birleşik Devletleri Başkanı Sayın Trump'a ve ekibine şahsım ve heyetime gösterdikleri ilgiden dolayı şahsım, milletim adına şükranlarımı ifade ediyorum.
And I would like to take this August opportunity to thank President Trump and his team for the generous hospitality they have shown us upon arrival, not only to my personal self, but to the entire members of my delegation on behalf of the entire Turkish nation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Bir kez daha huzurlarınızda Sayın Trump'ı seçimlerde elde ettiği tarihi zafer için kutluyorum.
And once again, in your presence, I would like to congratulate President Trump for the legendary triumph that he has garnered in the aftermath of the elections.
Sayın Başkan'la az önce ikili bir görüşme gerçekleştirdik.
Quite recently, we've had bilateral discussions with President Trump.
Köklü geçmişe dayanan ve stratejik ortaklık düzeyine erişmiş olan Türkiye-Amerika Birleşik Devletleri ilişkilerinin mevcut durumunu ele aldık.
And we've had the opportunity to focus on the outstanding relations between Turkey and the United States that date back a long time in history, which are very well rooted and which are quite happily reached a level of strategic partnership.
Türkiye ile Amerika arasındaki bağlar demokratik değerler ve müşterek menfaatler temelinde gelişmiştir.
The relations between Turkey and the United States have been erected upon common democratic values and common interests.
Aramızdaki ilişkileri güçlü tutmamız, karşılıklı çıkarlarımız yanında küresel barış ve istikrar için de önemlidir.
Keeping our outstanding relations stronger than ever will be very important, not only for our common interests, but also stability of the globe and peace around the world.
Bölgemizin içinden geçtiği bu çalkantılı dönemde özellikle de iki ülkenin göstereceği yakın işbirliği her zamankinden çok daha büyük önem kazanmıştır.
The close cooperation that the both of the countries shall demonstrate, especially in the region which is currently in turmoil, will be very important for the rest of the world.
Esasen Amerika ile Birleşmiş Milletler, NATO ve G20 gibi kilit kuruluşlar içinde zaten yakın işbirliği içindeyiz.
And primarily we are alongside by each other as Turkey and the United States under the roof of the United Nations, NATO and the G20.
Önümüzdeki süreçte bu platformlar başta olmak üzere her alanda diyalog ve dayanışmamızı daha da artırmanın kararındayız.
We have been enjoying a close cooperation in all of these platforms, in all of these fora around the world, and in the future to come, we are going to focus on making sure that we're going to expand our close cooperation and build on the outstanding dialogue that we enjoy.
Doğrusu ben bu ziyaretimizi bu bakımdan tarihi bir dönüm noktası teşkil edeceğine inanıyorum.
We are determined to expand our relations, and I believe my current official visit to the United States will mark a historical turn of tide.
Gerek ikili görüşmemiz, gerek biraz sonra yapacağımız heyetler arası görüşmenin geleceğimize yönelik çok daha büyük kazanımlar elde edeceğimize fırsat tanıyacağına inanıyorum.
Whether it be throughout our bilateral discussions, whether it be the discussions that we shall have between the delegations, I think we are going to enjoy some further gains in terms of the future of our relations.
Ekonomi, ticaret, yatırım, enerji ve savunma sanayi alanlarında işbirliğimizi artırma konusunda hemfikiriz.
We seem to agree on expanding our relations in the field of economy, trade, reciprocal investments, energy and defense industry.
DAEŞ başta olmak üzere bölgemizdeki tüm terör örgütlerine karşı müşterek bir dayanışma ortaya koymamız büyük önem ifade etmektedir.
It is going to be very important for us to forge a close solidarity and cooperation in the field of fighting terrorism, primarily with Daesh and all the other terrorist organizations in the region.
ortak geleceğimizi tehdit eden terör örgütlerine karşı ayrım yapmadan mücadele etmekte kararlıyız.
And we are committed to fighting all forms of terrorism without any discrimination whatsoever that impose a clear and a present threat upon our future.
Bölgemizin geleceğinde terör örgütlerine yer yoktur.
There's no place for the terrorist organizations in the future of our region.
Özellikle YPG, PYD terör örgütünün hangi ülke tarafından olursa olsun muhatap olarak alınması bu konuda küresel düzeyde varılan mutabakata kesinlikle uygun değildir.
Taking YPG and PYD in the region, taking them into consideration in the region will never be accepted, and it is going to be against a global agreement that we have reached.
Aynı şekilde terör örgütlerinin faaliyetlerini bahane ederek bölgenin inanç ve etnik yapısını değiştirmek isteyenlere de izin vermemeliyiz.
And we should never allow those groups to manipulate the religious structure and the ethnic structure of the region, making terrorism as a pretext or an excuse.
Suriye, Irak, Yemen ve Libya'daki kaosu fırsata çevirmek isteyenler eninde sonunda kaybedeceklerdir.
Those who are willing to turn the chaos in Syria, Iraq, Yemen and Libya are bound to lose eventually.
İki müttefikin dayanışma ve yakın işbirliği eli kanlı cinayet şebekelerini bertaraf etmek için kafidir.
They will never be able to turn that chaos in that part of the world into an opportunity, and the terrorist organizations with blood in their hands are bound to fail.
Daha önce de ifade ettiğim gibi Sayın Başkan'a 15 Temmuz darbe girişiminin faili FETÖ terör örgütü konusundaki beklentilerimizi de açıkça ifade edeceğim.
And as I have previously done so, I have been very frankly communicating our expectations with regard to the Fethullahist terrorist organization, which we have notified our friends of their involvement in the failed coup of July the 15th in Turkey.
Suriye ve Irak'ta atabileceğimiz ortak adımları değerlendirdik.
And we have taken into consideration the joint steps that we can take forward in Syria and Iraq.
Tabii Sayın Trump'ın seçim zaferi Türkiye'nin de içinde bulunduğu bölgede yeni beklentilerin doğmasına, umutların filizlenmesine yol açmıştır.
Of course, President Trump's recent election victory has led to the awakening of a new set of aspirations and expectations and hopes in our region.
Biz yeni ABD yönetiminin bu umutları boşa çıkarmayacağına inanıyoruz.
And we know that by the help of the new U.S. administration, these hopes will not be lost in vain.
Bilhassa Suriye rejiminin son kimyasal saldırısı sonrası takınılan kararlı tutumu oldukça yerinde buluyoruz.
And we find that it was the most necessary answer to be given to the Syrian regime, especially in the aftermath of the recent chemical attacks that took place.
Terör örgütleriyle ilkeli ve kararlı mücadele konusunda geçmişte yaşanan hataları telafi edecek adımların devamının geleceğini ümit ediyoruz.
And we know that in terms of keeping up with the principle and committed fight against the terrorist organizations all around the world, we will not repeat the mistakes of the past, and we will continue down this path together.
Bölgesel istikrar ve güvenliğin temininde Türkiye, Amerika Birleşik Devletleri işbirliği çok önemlidir.
In the restoration and the establishment of stability and security of the region in question, the alliance and the partnership and cooperation between the United States and Turkey is of vital importance.
Sayın Trump ile istişarelerimizi yoğunlaştırma, işbirliğimizi bundan sonra da kararlı bir şekilde devam ettirmenin İnanıyorum ki kararlılığı içindeyiz.
I hope and pray that both of us will be committed to expanding further our cooperation in the future, along with consulting each other more frequently.
Bugün temelleri atılan yeni dönemin ülkelerimiz açısından hayırlara vesile olmasını diliyorum.
We are laying the foundation of a new era between the two countries in terms of our relations. I hope and pray that this new administration will bring forth auspicious results for the relations.
Sayın Başkan'a nazik daveti ve konukseverliği için teşekkür ediyorum. Kendilerini de en yakın zamanda ailesiyle birlikte ülkemde ağırlamaktan memnuniyet duyacağımı ifade etmek istiyorum.
And I would like to thank President Trump for his very kind and cordial invitation, and I'm looking forward to hosting him in Turkey along with his entire family.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. We're going to go to meetings now. Well, we had a very, very successful successful meeting with the foreign minister of Russia. Our fight is against ISIS. As General McMaster said, I thought he said, and I know he feels, that we had actually a great meeting with the foreign minister. So we're going to have a lot of great success over the next coming years, and we want to get as many to help fight terrorism as possible. And that's one of the beautiful things that's happening with Turkey. The relationship that we have together will be unbeatable. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it. We're going to meetings right now.
All right, you heard it there. President Trump and Turkish President Recep Erdogan giving joint statements at the White House. And at the very end there, the U.S. president did address the furor in Washington over that classified information, highly classified information that was spoken of in the room with Russia's foreign minister last week. He said that it was a very successful meeting with the foreign minister of Russia. And as an umbrella sort of explanation, said our fight is against ISIS. He said he knows that H.R. McMaster, the National Security Advisor, feels the meeting was a great success, and also brought Turkey into the equation, saying that that relationship that we would have together would also be a great success. Now, to get back to the actual joint statements, let me turn back to Bloomberg's chief Washington correspondent Kevin Cirilli and Edward Djerejian. He is former EU ambassador to Syria and to Israel, currently director of public policy at Rice University's Baker Institute. So it was a very interesting joint statements. President Erdogan talked about the legendary triumph that had awaited President Trump following the election, and, you know, talked about outstanding relations between two countries that date back a long time. But Ambassador Djerejian, he did mention at the end some of those points of contention, you know, albeit phrasing it in the sense that it would be a sort of a mutual fight against ISIS. Where will the cooperation come from?
Well, I think first, both President Erdogan and President Trump achieved what they wanted to achieve, is to reassert the importance of the U.S. Turkish relationship. And Erdogan mentioned a new way forward. It was apparent that the two leaders were getting along well together. These are all major political considerations on both sides. Erdogan mentioned the bilateral relationship. It was interesting, the segments he mentioned on the economy, trade, energy, etc. But I was really taken by the amount of focus and time that Erdogan spent on the issue of terrorism. That obviously was the primary issue of discussion between the two presidents. And he indicated that this is the common challenge. President Trump indicated that also in his remarks. And then Erdogan went into quite a bit of detail on that. And while he didn't specifically mention the areas of disagreement, such as on Gulen and on the YPG, the Syrian Kurdish role, obviously that was a major discussion that they had to have, and they will continue to have. But yes, of course, they didn't bring that out in any detail.
Kevin Cirilli, let me turn to you, our chief Washington correspondent, and ask you, what would be a win for President Trump out of today's meeting, given that he's headed off to Saudi Arabia and other Middle East countries later in the week?
Funny, he has to put behind him the questions that are dogging his entire administration. Look, at the end of that joint statement, we heard the president say that he wants to work with as many countries as possible to defeat ISIS, when reporters were asking him about whether or not he revealed classified or highly classified intelligence to Russian diplomats last week here at the White House. The issue is not whether or not President Trump wants to work with people to defeat terrorists. It's how he handled classified information. Beyond that, it's also why he decided to fire FBI Director James Comey the way that he did. And these are questions that are ongoing. I mean, the final word that we heard from the briefing of General H.R. McMaster at the press briefing earlier this afternoon was that the president was unaware if he was being briefed on highly classified information.
Yes.
When I spoke with the Senate Majority Leader earlier today, Vani, there's a frustration that is palpable, not just amongst Democrats, but among Republicans, that the chaos inside of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is severely starting to limit its ability to get across legislative priorities such as healthcare and tax reform.
Ambassador Djerejian, director of the Baker Institute, can I ask you about the focus on trade ties? The U.S. president, making it very clear that Turkey had ordered military equipment and the U.S. would, go a long way to getting it to Turkey very quickly. What was the message here? I mean, what's the quid pro quo, if you like, for Turkey working with the U.S. in some way or changing its position in some way to try to achieve Middle East peace, which is what the U.S. president said was on the agenda?
Well, I think the military relationship between the U.S. and Turkey has been longstanding, as you know. And remember, we have one of our major bases in the region in Incirlik, our air base in Incirlik, which plays a critical role in U.S. deployments in the Middle East. And so there's nothing unusual about the military relationship being continued and perhaps enhanced by new military deliveries and sales. So that I think is par for the course.
Well, so let me ask you then very, very briefly what the U.S. president has to bargain with. What can he offer the Turkish president that might get accepted by the Turkish president?
Well, as I said, I think we need to conduct some very serious and professional diplomacy in resolving this issue in Syria. The differences we have with our support for the YPG and the Syrian Defense Forces and Turkey's anxieties about that because they think that the YPG is part of a terrorist organization. These are real issues that I'm sure are going to be discussed in the conversations.
Ambassador Djerejian, thank you. And of course, Kevin Cirilli outside the White House. This is Bloomberg.